The Tuesday sun crept through the blinds, not as a comfort but as a cruel spotlight, casting its glare on everything I didn't want to face. For months, I had carried that heavy knot in my stomach, a twisting, gnawing weight that wouldn't go away. It wasn't only the strain of deadlines at work or the constant sense that I was neglecting something important. It was deeper, sharper. It was in the way Jane's eyes flickered down at her phone when she thought I wasn't watching. It was in the way her body tensed whenever I brushed against her arm. It was in the small lies, the carefully chosen half-truths she sprinkled into daily conversations like poison disguised as sugar. I kept telling myself I was imagining things, that marriage wasn't a fairy tale, that distance came and went. 10 years together, surely this was just another wave to ride. But that morning, over eggs and burnt toast, I knew. She sat across from me, rattling off details about some yoga studio opening downtown. Her voice light but hollow, her eyes never once lifting to mine. I stirred my coffee too hard, the spoon clinking against the mug in a rhythm that betrayed the storm I was holding back. Then came the sharp knock at the door. The mailman, cheerful as ever, dropping a small stack of envelopes on the counter. Bills, promotions, junk mail. Except one. A plain white envelope with no return address. My name scrawled in a messy hand, the ink smudged as if written in haste. My stomach sank as soon as I picked it up. "Oh, just toss it," Jane said with a careless wave, not even glancing at it. Her voice was too breezy, her tone too casual. The dismissal was forced, practiced. My gut twisted tighter, that old instinct screaming so loudly it drowned out everything else. I tore the envelope slowly, my fingers trembling with both dread and certainty. Inside was a single photograph. My breath caught. Jane's face stared back at me, flushed with joy, lips pressed against another man's in a kiss that was no accident, no innocent slip. It was a kiss that spoke of long whispers, of private moments, of a passion she no longer saved for me. My coffee cup slid from my hand, shattering on the floor, though the sound was distant, muffled by the roar in my ears. Jane froze mid-sentence, the words dying in her throat. Her eyes went wide, and all the color drained from her cheeks, leaving her pale, like a ghost caught under the harsh light of truth. "Junk mail?" I asked quietly, the words cutting like glass. My hand shook as I held the picture in front of her. Silence pressed down on us, broken only by the thudding of my heart. She tried to speak, her voice stumbling over excuses that collapsed before they could form. But I couldn't hear any of it. The betrayal was deafening. Every promise, every shared memory turned to ash in that moment. "Who is he?" My voice was calm, but underneath, anger coiled like a serpent ready to strike. She faltered, her eyes darting about the room as if searching for an escape hatch that didn't exist. At last she whispered the name, Daniel. A stranger to me, yet suddenly the most real enemy I had ever known. "Get out." My words were low, guttural, almost foreign in my own mouth. She flinched, tears pooling in her eyes. "Please," she begged, her voice breaking. "Let me explain." "You've explained enough." My tone was flat, cold, the warmth I once reserved for her completely gone. "Get out before I say something I'll regret." Her hands shook as she gathered a few belongings, movements clumsy, desperate. The slam of the door echoed through the house, leaving behind a silence thicker than anything I had ever felt. In the days that followed, rage consumed me. It wasn't the wild kind that burned out quickly, it was steady, insatiable. I needed to know everything. I dug into her betrayal with the precision of a man dissecting his own heart. My connections, the ones I rarely used outside of business, yielded results quickly. Within days I had Daniel's name, his face, his address. He wasn't some faceless shadow. He was a slick, well-dressed real estate agent, young and smug, the kind of man Jane used to ridicule in passing conversations. The irony nearly choked me. I walked into his office one afternoon. He looked up from his phone, annoyance flickering across his face before recognition dawned. His expression faltered, turning to fear as he read the fury in my eyes. "Daniel," I said quietly, each syllable a warning. The office was empty except for us. He tried for a smile, weak and nervous. "Can I help you?" I didn't answer. I grabbed his shirt, yanking him across the desk until our faces were inches apart. My fist drove into his jaw with all the weight of months of betrayal behind it. His chair toppled as he stumbled backward. The fight that followed wasn't graceful. It was raw, vicious, fueled by a pain too deep to put into words. Paper flew. Furniture splintered as I unleashed every ounce of anger I had buried inside. He tried to defend himself, but he was no match for the storm I had become. Finally, bloodied and trembling, he lay sprawled on the floor, eyes wide with terror. "Stay away from her," I hissed, my voice shaking with fury. "If I see you near her again, I'll finish what I started." He whimpered his agreement, broken and pathetic, clutching at his bruised face. But I wasn't done. The fire in me wouldn't let go. I knew where he lived. I went there that night, waiting in the shadows until he returned. The moment his eyes met mine, panic spread across his battered features. I tore the phone from his hand before he could even dial for help, smashing it against the pavement. My fists and boots rained down on him again, each blow punctuated with the words he needed to hear. The words about the wreckage he had caused, the life he had destroyed. I didn't care if he listened. I needed to say it, to spit the venom back into the heart of the man who had poisoned mine. When he was barely able to move, I left him there, a broken shell. But vengeance wasn't reserved for him alone. Jane would feel it too. I made calls. I reached out to her family, her colleagues, anyone who knew her. I painted the truth in bold, ugly strokes, making sure no one was left in the dark about the kind of woman she was. I didn't care if her career shattered, or if whispers followed her down every hallway. I wanted her world reduced to rubble, just as she had reduced mine. A week later, she appeared at my door. Her eyes were red, her face hollowed by sleepless nights. Gone was the arrogance, the careless dismissal. She begged, actually begged, for forgiveness, her voice hoarse with desperation. But I felt nothing. No satisfaction, no pity. Only emptiness. I shut the door in her face. The weeks blurred into endless paperwork, lawyers dividing the pieces of what used to be our life together. The house, the accounts, the memories, all reduced to transactions and signatures. The sharp sting of betrayal dulled, leaving behind a heavy ache, a scar that would never truly fade. I never saw Jane again. And though the future stretched ahead like an empty road, at least it was mine alone. Free from lies. Free from her.